themselves and their organizations and even their students in their classrooms into the events with us. So we were planning all this stuff. All the while, every single time we talked on the phone, every time we got together and the radio was on or somebody was giving the other a ride, the song would pop on and like we're singing at the top of our lungs, like, you know, committing our entire souls to the song, like it was built for that moment, that we were committed to that song there, because if we didn't sing it right, the world would end. I mean, that's how deep we were. Now, she was way off key. I was a little off key, but she was way off key. Like, I'm telling the story, so you just... Hello, and welcome to another episode of Music and Nostalgia, where we share with you some of the songs that take us to a beautiful place or a magical place or wherever else it is that it takes us in our lives. Today, well, first off, I am your host, Dr. Peters, with you again. And here, let's share another memory. So, because Martin Luther King Day just passed, this episode is in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And I have a story, and the song I'm about to share with you is actually not what you would imagine. And it's not, hopefully it comes together for you just like it did for me, but the memory is so well intertwined that I can't wait to share it with you. Today, we're going to talk about how Debra Cox and RL connect to Martin Luther King Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right? And today's song is We Can't Be Friends by Debra Cox featuring RL. A few things about this song, just to kind of give you a little walk back down memory lane. This song was released in the year 1999. Interesting fact, it was actually written for a group, 98 Degrees. I'm hoping you guys know who they are, at least if you're an 80s baby, you should know. If you're a 90s baby, you probably should as well. But 98 Degrees was supposed to do the song. Somehow it didn't work out. The song was written by, I think it was Shep Crawford. He wrote it for them, and then there was supposed to be some of the agreements. It didn't work out. And Clive was like, yo, he heard the song. He was like, I think this is Debra Cox. But he was like, this is Debra Cox's song, and I think we should bring on RL. And RL, if you guys don't know, he was from the group Next. And Next used to be jamming, right? Like the 90s, early 2000s was the era of groups. Like, you know, like we had the boy bands, but we just had some really nice groups in that era. Well, this song, We Can't Be Friends by Debra Cox and RL, was just a banger when it came out in 1999. It was in our heads and our hearts. Actually, so that's 22 years that song's been out there. And when you listen to it now, it's still sweet as fire. That thing is so beautiful. I was just listening to it before I started recording this episode, and I'm telling you, you got to listen to it. Just go listen to it, because they killed it. I mean, they worked so well together. I mean, and that year was just a banger for Debra Cox, because she had some magical songs. Well, anyway, let's go into why Martin Luther King Jr. Day and We Can't Be Friends actually have a great memory for me. So here we go. Story time, right? I grew up around the experience, the spirit, and the lifestyle of community service, doing things where we were providing food for the needy, taking care of kids in the orphanages. This is growing up in Nigeria. This was just it was just a natural part of this. I remember my grandma would always, like, for Muslims, they have something we call Ramadan, where, they would provide food for, villages. It felt like everybody was doing that. If you had any kind of means, no matter how little or large it was, you were providing it. My mother comes from a Muslim family, even though she grew up Christian. So we were always exposed to all of this stuff. We always were taking care of things on the side of the Muslim side of the family, or the Christian side. Just a little tidbit about my family. I'll get into those stories someday, and I think you'll enjoy learning a little more about my childhood and my family and how interconnected we are. So anyway, so that's what I grew up doing and being. And when I moved to the US, I had opportunities because in school, of course, as an athlete, I was an athlete in high school. We got to do some service things as a team, whether it be, raising funds for the team to get uniforms and stuff like that, or we were actually out building stuff with Habitat for Humanity and all these different organizations. We were doing different projects just to make sure our community was getting something from us instead of always just given to us. So that was always just a part of my life, and I loved it because it was just who I was, and it was the environment that I was raised in. So it just felt right to continue in that journey. So while in high school, in my senior year, I'd taken office in several organizations, and in this particular year, it had to be my senior year. Actually, yes, it was my senior year. I was the president of an organization called the Key Club. It's basically a high school level of the Kiwanis Club, a service project organization. And I was so excited about that because I loved service. And so it just tied into what I was about. And, I was a part of several other organizations, and I felt like I could have a great impact in this organization and positively shine the light on doing service work, and as well as all the other organizations over there. We always banded together. Even in college, I did it. Years after, I don't do as much as I used to, but I certainly would love to get my hands back into doing service projects. And so this year that I was senior, from the summer, I started working with my team. The vice president was Janae Brown. I think our secretary was Glover at the time. And I forget what other position, probably the treasurer. I don't know, one of the, but it was Joshua. I can't remember what positions everybody had, but I know myself and Janae particularly, we had those president and vice president. So we were always working and planning to create projects throughout the entire year. We were excited about it. We were looking forward to it. We were cohesive. I remember we would even come over to my house sometimes. We'll get together and just drum out some projects, some design. I put together some ideas for the projects of the week, the month, or whatever it was. And so we were doing those things. And a part of that, because we were all still high school kids, I lived way far away from school. I should have actually been going to a different school, but I was rebellious and I fought my parents. I was like, no, I want to stay here because I got one more year. I might as well stick it out. Yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. A lot of lessons I had to learn from that. I should have taken their advice when they asked me, but I still love it because I built some great relationships, some strong friendships that I'm still able to lean on even now, 20 plus years later. And so I got a chance to really, because we couldn't really do the physical visits all the time because of how far away I was. A lot of times my vice president in particular and I would always be on the phone, planning out things, making sure that we had our details ironed out. So I knew that we were a team. So around this era, obviously I said, well, not obviously, you may not know this, but I didn't always have CDs. I didn't always, because limited funds. So I had to do the things that were convenient, which in those days meant always having the radio on. It was always easy access to the current music of the day. So there was a station, one of the biggest in Atlanta, still one of the biggest in Atlanta right now, may even be the largest station in Atlanta. I don't know. I have to go check the stats. Well, I was so fortunate to always listen to it. And so did my VP, Janae. And every time we would be on the phone talking, planning out, organizing, not only did we organize things for our organization, we were also friends, really good friends. So it worked out for us to be officers together. So every time we would be on the phone, like without fail, every single time we were on the phone, a song would pop up. We can't be friends. And it didn't really occur to us that it was happening that frequently for a while, until we would be on the phone together. And as soon as the song came on, we would start singing it. Like as we're talking and there's a pause and you just, you're taking notes or you just kind of pause there. And then all of a sudden you just start singing the song. That was me. I was like, we were doing that. And we were like, yo, like this song comes on every single time. Now this is the dawn of the era of cell phones. So we couldn't always call on our cell phones, but whenever back then, the free calls happened at 9 p.m. and then eventually moved back to 7 p.m. after a little while. So 9 p.m. you could make free calls. So we'd be calling each other after 9 on our cell phones, just kind of drum out some more things, because back then it was either that or the house phone, and that means anybody could jump on the call. And instead of being interrupted, we just handle business that way quickly. After 9 o'clock, boom, get it done, and we'll be off the phone. So that was just a natural part. So every single time with that, we would be on the phone together, that song would come on. It became such a running joke between us that if one of us heard the song just randomly, like we're out somewhere, we wouldn't mind wasting a couple of minutes on our daytime minutes to pick up the phone and call each other. It's funny, like folks don't even, that's not even a factor. Like most of our phone, all of our phones are unlimited minutes now. It's a different world, I promise you. Like just think back, that was just 2 decades ago that you had to watch the minutes before the hour before you call. Sidebar. So as we were doing that, like if we heard the song, we'd intentionally call each other and just boom. And folks around us started to identify the fact that when that song came on, we would look at each other, we would interact with each other and crack up, like just have a field day. And it got to a point where we picked our parts. So I was RL, she was Debra Cox, and we would just sing that thing out like we had been plotting and planning this out. It went so long and strong that folks started to think that maybe there was something going on between us because of how much we were on the phone with each other, how much we were interacting with each other. I mean, we'd set people straight, like, no, we were legit good friends. And there was nothing else going on. There was never any intention. I think she would claim that I bullied her, and we never happened. Like I was just that nice guy. I just was that guy. I wasn't bullying anybody. I wasn't, we were friends. But anyway, how people be talking. So anyway, to why it ties into Martin Luther King Day, right? So part of what we were doing during the Christmas holidays, we were planning for a big project to get as many students from our school to participate with us in the Martin Luther King Day service events that were going on all over the city. So we planned to go into the city, like into Atlanta, which was a bit of a distance from Decatur or Stone Mountain where I was living, to go in, do some service work and get our hands dirty. Wherever there were projects, we had already picked out a few things. And so we had designed projects so that we could get as many people to those events. And that was the plan. We were working it out. Come through January, we're plotting everything. We're having club meetings. We're inviting other clubs to participate with us. We're talking to teachers on campus so that they could all participate and plug themselves and their organizations and even their students in their classrooms into the events with us. So we were planning all this stuff. All the while, every single time we talked on the phone, every time we got together and the radio was on or somebody was giving the other a ride, the song would pop on and like we're singing at the top of our lungs, like, committing our entire souls to the song, like it was built for that moment, that we were committed to that song there, because if we didn't sing it right, the world would end. I mean, that's how deep we were. Now, she was way off key. I was a little off key, but she was way off key. Like, I'm telling the story, so you just gonna have to take my word for it. So that was how we interacted with that song. So the day of Martin Luther King Day, that was a Monday, we were off of school. So that morning we hurried and we planned it out already that we would meet at one of the train stations and ride in to the city, and there we would do the project. So that was it. Boom, we made the plans. And we had what seemed like 20 something students that said, yes, we commit to doing this. And we were excited about it. We got to the train station, it was like 6 of us. I was so salty. I was like, wait, we really thought everybody was going to be committed to this thing, and ain't nobody show up but the 4 officers and a couple other students. I mean, we ran into other people in the city, but they didn't come to like necessarily stick with our entire design of projects that we had. So we were going to do 2 projects and we're going to go to a parade or whatever it was. I don't remember the specifics, but as we're riding the train, as we're going about, it seemed like that song didn't have to play because it played so much in our regular lives that we heard it and we would just start singing it, cracking up on the train. Folks would be looking at us like, I think they lost their marbles. But it was just our regular routine. We got into the city, Like we're doing all this stuff. Like I don't even know what happened, but there's a picture of me and her. Like I was, so here's another thing. I was an athlete, right? I was a wrestler. So the hip toss, the, picking people up and throwing them on my shoulder was nothing, because I was in pretty good shape. So it was just part of my normal routine. So there's a picture where I scooped her up, threw her on my shoulder, or I was in the process of throwing her up on my shoulder. And one of the crew just took a picture of us. And to this day, every time I look at that picture, it takes me right back to that song, "We Can't Be Friends" by Debra Cox and RL. And I bust out laughing. Like, even though it's been 20 years, we don't talk regularly, but whenever we talk, like, even if like she posts something on social media, and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. It's unfortunate we can't be friends." Like, in her response, it's always a laugh. Like, everybody else would be like, "That seemed like nothing big." Like, but that inside joke is still with us. What, 20, might be 22 years later, that it's a permanent part of our interactions. We hold on to it, like, and it's an enjoyable thing that even when we don't talk for years, that always pulls us right back together. And it's great because, for me, Martin Luther King Day, let's talk about the man first. Martin Luther King Jr. was a legend. He was assassinated way before he should have been gone. He had a lot more work to do. Fortunately, there were other leaders to step in, but he served as somebody that was ready to change the world, and he was doing things to sacrifice his own livelihood, his own comforts, to make sure that we could have a better future. And while we're still fighting to get that better future, things are a lot better, but we have a whole lot more to do, a whole lot more to accomplish. But part of what he always did was make sure that he served the people. And for me, service to many leads to greatness. And I love the fact that I could go out there and serve people in many ways. One being community service, whether it be, for a group of people, or just one or two people, or just where you live or where you're from. So I love the fact that I could do those things to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I pray that there's more of us that can go out there and serve others, because the more people we serve, the better we feel on the inside at first, because now we're taking the focus off of our wants, our needs, but we now get other people to see that it's not always all about them, and they can reach out and give somebody else some love. And give somebody else some attention. And when we do those things, it strengthens the community. And that's why I love Dr. Martin Luther King. He sacrificed so much for the well-being of all people, not just Black people, not just American people, not just the poor or whatever. He did this for all people. And just like so many others, we have a list of people that were civil rights agents for change, that even though they couldn't complete their mission on earth physically, their name still rings true 50, 60 years, 30 years later, depending on who we're talking about. So I want every single one of us to go out and do something good for our communities, serve in some way, do something where you get your hands into the act of serving others. I really hope and pray that you can find a reason to connect Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s mission to your mission, so that we can all be the better for it. And not only that, find something memorable, find a reason that "We Can't Be Friends" by Debra Cox and RL can be something. I'd love to hear your story. Obviously, not everybody can have the same one as me. It's tying it to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of service. But I'm sure there's a story behind that song for you. I would love to hear it. I'd love to see how it connects to you and your life. And more importantly, I'd love to see that you connect this episode, this show, with your friends, your family, your circle, your network. Everybody should hear this story. I'd love to get your feedback. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube page. Make sure you connect to the podcast, so that with more that's going on, with more that we have going on, you can be a part of that journey. I want you to be able to connect with the stories that we have. And more than that, I want you to be able to share your stories, so other people can connect to that as well. I'm looking forward to when your experiences hit the airwaves and everybody can say, ooh, me too. I had such an experience. I had similar or different, but something about your experience. I wanted to touch lives by you sharing. So go ahead, come in the comments. Let us know what you like. Remember, subscribe, like, share, comment. And while you're at it, go ahead and rate it. Give me a 5-star if you believe that our stories all connect one way or another. Looking forward to more stories. I'm excited. Thank you all for participating in another episode of Music and Nostalgia, where we find stories that connect us all through the music that we hear and love. Good night. Goodbye. Thanks a lot. Thanks. And once again, let's go out there and serve others so we can find our greatness. All right. Do good and know that whatever our experiences are, the joy is truly in the journey. Peace.